In the mid-40s, something happened in London which changed world history. There were top experts gathered together in London to make an important decision. They were scientists, but they carried a huge responsibility. They had this summit meeting and they decided as follows. It was, remember, the end of the war, but the war was still on. They were going to do this. They were going to inform the enemy that they had the bomb. If they capitulated, all well and good. If not, they were going to explode one in the sea. If they capitulated, all well and good. If not, they were going to explode one on the land. Actually, they couldn't go much further, but the enemy didn't know that. When they were in the aeroplane to get back to the States and the various parts of the world where they had been involved, they picked up that the bomb had gone off. In other words, decisions were happening without them. Presumably, President Truman had given himself the okay. The result was the first atom bomb. Now, it was the 6th of August that the big one, which actually did end the war, went off. It had been destined for another place, but apparently something, weather conditions and radar did not make it possible, and it ended up on Nagasaki, the Christian part of Japan. Now, it would seem that it was pretty Christian and that those there were in a state of grace and well prepared. It would seem, therefore, that divine providence allowed that to happen so that they could be victims to bring this war to a close, rather like the Lamb. When they got down there to clear up the mess, they found something very puzzling. They found that one building was undamaged. It was the place where something had happened. A community of Jesuits had decided to live the messages of Fatima, including in particular devotion to the Immaculate Heart and the Rosary. When, on the 6th of August, things started to go really wrong, with these things coming through the air, they launched a huge novena of rosaries, a crusade reaching as many as they possibly could in a short time. And the result was that peace came on this day, the 15th of August, under the queenship of Our Blessed Lady. The Immaculate Heart is something that we have got used to talking about since 1917. I would like for a few minutes to zoom in to what happened in those events. Our Blessed Lady could have asked for something like this. I would want all to assist every day at the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass. But she didn't. She simply said, but she said it each time, that we were to recite 5 decades of the Holy Rosary. Now, that is not actually impossible for anyone. on earth. That is probably why she said so, and not anything which people could excuse themselves easily from. But, and it's a big but, she is not easily fooled. Heaven knows who are praying those decades and who are in automatic pilot. And it would seem that one of the greatest tragedies in our spirituality is that we are spending a lot of our time in automatic pilot. Analyze mentally how much is communion and contact. Compare the quality of prayer with the quality of human conversation. In conversation, what is happening? You are thinking about the other person and his meaning. You are engaging with that person. Now, if we believe in God and the court of heaven, we are engaging with living beings. And that is not done in automatic pilot. We are not machines, and heaven knows the difference. When we pray, e.g., that kind of intensity of getting people to say the rosary and mean it, and together, things actually happen. Big time. I've heard so many testimonies. Why? Heaven takes seriously those who take it seriously. And we can't presume that heaven is interested in what we're not interested in. We've done our duty. Let's have a cup of tea. But Our Lady did many things in Fatima. Do you know that the Holy Father is going to consecrate the whole world to the Immaculate Heart on the 13th of October, which was the culmination of Fatima? I think also he's going to get the statue from Fatima itself to Rome. That may have an effect on the world, as may this consecration happening today in Knock on Ireland. But what happened in that last event in Fatima needs examination. What took place? And by the way, it was reading that event which brought me into the Catholic Church. On the vigil of this feast day, I'm not sure, I think it wasn't 68, it was 69, I'm just going to calculate, it must have been 1969. And I read this in a very Protestant area, and I zoomed into it. That means that our Blessed Lady is not what the Protestants think her to be. She's part of the parcel, and you can't get to Christ without that involvement with the mother of the family. But this was not just a miracle. What happened on that last event in Fatima? It was linked with what? It was linked with the sun. And we know from contemporary evidence that the people there saw the sun actually coming very, very close to the earth, and they were afraid that this was the end of the world. They were really frightened. Now, what is the sun? It is nuclear fission. You know that energy cannot be created or destroyed for us. It can only be changed in form. Now, in nuclear fission, what is happening is this. A tiny quantity of extremely powerful matter is being transformed from matter to energy, but a colossal amount, because unstable particles, when they become energy at that tiny microscopic level, create huge amounts of energy, and they become therefore extremely dangerous. Hence the power of the atomic bomb. It's meddling with that limit between matter and energy. And by the way, some physicists would say that in the last resort, matter as such doesn't actually exist. It's all, if you keep on going further down, a meddling of forces, giving the impression of solid matter. But that's a parenthesis. But God knows it all. He invented it. And what was he saying by this specific event of the sun? I would say, and experts have put this in print, that there's a hint there. It was not just a miracle to show that Our Lady was appearing, but there was a specific message linked with what was starting in 1917, communism and all that that could unstabilize in the world, leading to nuclear warfare and all the rest of it. Nuclear warfare and all the rest of it. Because the sun is that. And you start meddling with huge quantities of energy and you've got auto-destruction on the level of the planet. That is what we're up against. It could not be seen at that point, but we, with a bit of afterthought, can see where things are going. We are, right now, and we can't see it, but heaven can, perhaps in a very dicey situation here on earth. The capacity for destruction is uncalculable. Therefore, this element is, I would say, something linked with the Immaculate Heart, which wants to protect it from it. Therefore, this consecration of Ireland, this consecration of the whole world, on the feast of Our Lady of Fatima later on, are important events in the history of this planet. Our Lady is interested in what's going on here, and she's appearing on earth with a rhythm and a frequency that has never ever been seen before in human history. Medjugorje is quite unique. Every day now since 1981, she has been coming for a short period of time here to this planet. Now what is she doing? If that's happening in that dramatic way, although we've got used to it, it means that we're in a situation that has not been known in human history before now, and it means greater attention being given to us from on high in that intervention by our Blessed Lady, trying to warn us and asking for things she's never asked before, fasting and so on that level. But if we take her seriously, heaven is not outdone in generosity. I'll just tell you one story for the sake of the little people and the big people who are not listening as well. It happened also in the war. Now do you remember that Our Blessed Lady appeared in different forms in those apparitions in that 13th of October? One of them was as Our Lady of Mount Carmel. That's interesting. Now, one time during the war, there was a troop of soldiers and they were advancing against the German retreat, bit by bit getting ground. And at a certain point, they had to have some kind of rest, because they can't nevertheless carry on day after day, night after night without sleeping, in the midst even of strange things, explosions and all that goes with it. So they were trying to find somewhere to rest and get some kind of sleep. They were finding deserted farms as they moved on, and that could be a blessing. They found a deserted farm at one point and a pump of water. That was a great blessing for soldiers covered in mud and sweat. So they peeled themselves off and started to wash themselves with clean water. But one of them was a very good Catholic, and he had on him this scapular of Mount Carmel. And this meant a lot to him, because it kept him safe, he felt, all that time in the years of fighting. He was not keen with parting with it. Anyway, he had to take it off to have a good wash, and left it by the pump. He didn't think to put it back again. So he got to the place where the soldiers were trying to get a few hours of sleep, and was about to nod off, and fumbled for his little scapula. It wasn't there. Of course, he had not put it back on. Well, no one will let me go out of the camp at this stage. I'll have to stay put and just pray that heaven will keep me safe. So he tried to get off to sleep. But an hour later, he had not got off to sleep, and it was so strong he could not actually bear it to go any further without the scapula on him. He was at death's door with all these bombs going off. So he tried to discreetly get permission from the sergeant who was overlooking that little troop to get out and get the scapula. He wriggled out eventually and found his way to the farm and the pump. It was dark, but he knew exactly where he'd put it, and he tried his best to find it. It was nowhere to be found. He was devastated. Anyway, he could but get back. And as he did so, he was starting to move back towards his troop, and he heard this huge explosion. That was my troop, all gone up in a bomb. So he went to somewhere where he could get some kind of consolation. There was some kind of remains of an inn in the area, and he walked in. And who walked in at the same time but another one from the same troop? How did you get here? I thought you were all blown up a few minutes ago. I'm here because of you. What? Well, yes. Isn't this yours? It was the scapular. What on earth are you doing with that? Well, I knew it meant a lot to you. So I saw this by the pump and I thought, well, I better hang on to it. And then I was there and I could see you were over that corner. I wanted to get it to you, but the sergeant, when he saw, he said, do something useful. Go over there and get me a drink of water. So he sent me over to this place, and here you are. And in the meantime, they've all been blown up. Do you see? This bit of cloth saved us both. And more than one testimony of that nature I've heard about people involved in almighty accidents. There's no hope that anyone could survive, but the person driving did, and next to the crushed car was this, unscathed. A reminder that our Blessed Lady takes us seriously when we take her seriously.